Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Grafton Select Board meeting for November 2nd, 2021. I'd like to call the meeting order for 7 p.m. First order of business I would like to do tonight is I'd like everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Next up, I have just a couple of announcements to make. The Grafton Recreation Department's Home and Business Decorating Contest is back as part of its annual Grafton Celebrates the Holiday event. You can enter your home or business in one of three categories for all to view and vote on their favorite, with winners in each category receiving a $50 Grafton restaurant gift card and a $100 gift card for the overall favorite. Please register at www.graftonrec.com by no later than November 15th. Just a reminder that the Boy Scout Bottle Drive will be holding a bottle drive on Saturday the 6th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the rear of the Municipal Center parking lot. Last but not least, it's that time of year again, everybody. The Grafton Economic Development Committee is once again holding Shop Grafton. This is your chance to win one of 10 $100 gift cards to local businesses. Shop Grafton cards are available in the town administrator's office here at the Municipal Center or at any of the participating retailers. Once you have shopped at the 10 different retailers between November 1st and December 24th, hand in your card and you will be entered into the raffle. Watch the town's social media pages for any updates. Thank you very much, everyone. And do we have anyone here who would like to make a public comment? Anyone from the Zoom meeting would like to come in and make a public comment? Please do. Not seeing anybody. Okay, so first up at the agenda, we have several public hearings. The first one here will be a National Grid poll petition for Murray Avenue. Could I ask the clerk to please read legal notice into the record?
The Select Board will hold a public hearing on the request of National Grid and Verizon New England to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way: Murray Avenue. Install one JO pole on Murray Avenue beginning at a point approximately 18 feet east of the center line of the intersection of Murray Avenue and Main Street. Mass DOT to widen the Main Street. Existing poles along Main Street will be needed to be relocated, and to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. The public hearing will be held on November 2, 2021 in Conference Room A of the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center located at 30 Providence Road. Remote meeting participation will be available and the meeting link will be posted on the November 2nd agenda. The Selectmen's meeting begins at 7 p.m. The purpose of this hearing is to provide an opportunity for public comment. Anyone wishing to may attend via Zoom.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for Murray Avenue?
I make a motion we open the public hearing for Murray Avenue.
Second.
Motion made, seconded to open the public hearing. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Declare the motion carried. Good evening, everyone, and I would like to welcome Kim from National Grid here as well, who will be talking over the next couple of poll hearings. The first one is for Murray Ave. Kim, did you want to make any opening comments? Kim, can you hear us? You're on mute. All right.
She just unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi,
Yes.
Kim, we can hear you. Can we just adjust the
Right
volume
here.
inside here, please? Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, so I cannot hear you through the Zoom meeting, but I can hear you through my telephone. So, yes, I'm here from National Grid to answer any questions that you may have about the relocating of the poles. I guess that you are widening, Mass DOT is widening Main Street, and so the existing utility poles need to be relocated.
That's correct. Thank you. Does any of the board members have any questions for Kim? Does anyone from the public have any questions for Kim? Kim, I do have one question. There are two gentlemen who are in attendance tonight, and just wanted to know, for the record, do you have a time frame in which these poles will start to be moved in the vicinity?
I do not have that time frame. Nothing is happening, of course, until this petition passes. I am just here representing National Grid. I don't really know what the time frame is on the project. I believe that Scott Saugen from the engineering contractor who did this job is also on the line. Scott, are you here?
Hi, Scott, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yep, I'm here.
Hi, Scott. Hi.
Hi.
So the question that was asked to Kim is, do you have, or does anyone from National Grid or anyone have an idea as to when the poles are going to begin being moved?
That's probably more of a question for National Grid operations, but my understanding is like Kim said, that we've been waiting on the petition and the petition hearing, and once that's if this passes, that they would get started probably quite soon. I believe the road construction was going to start towards the end of the year and carry into spring of next year, and National Grid relocating the utility poles is one of the first things to happen.
Okay. All right, thank you. Does any of the board members have any other questions? I guess just a comment that I would like to ask, if people from National Grid could please indicate or give a heads up as to when the construction will begin on moving those poles. There are certain neighbors in the area who are here in attendance tonight who would like to know that information. If there's any way you can communicate that through the town administrator's office, and I will ask the town administrator's office to update through the normal channels to get the word out to the residents. Is that possible?
Absolutely. I will call the town administrator tomorrow, or I can send an email as soon as I find out what the schedule is for the overhead operations group, or if it's going to be a contracted job.
All right, thank you, Kim. Appreciate that. If you two would just want to leave your
You're welcome.
contact information before you leave, and leave it with Evan, okay? He can reach out to you directly when that is going to occur once we find out from National Grid. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? All right, thank you. I can take a motion to close the public hearing?
All right. Quick question.
Yes.
Are we on Murray Avenue or Main Street?
Murray
Murray.
Avenue.
Okay. So I make a motion, we close the public hearing for the Murray Avenue poll petition.
Second.
Motion made second to close the public hearing for Murray Avenue. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, do I have a motion for consideration for the moving of the poll?
I move the board vote to approve the poll petition as presented for Murray Avenue.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the poll being moved? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, Mr. Often, if you would be so kind as to read back the legal notice for Main Street National Grid poll petition.
The Select Board will hold a public hearing on the request of National Grid and Verizon New England to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Main Street. Install 5 JO poles and relocate 56 JO poles on Main Street, beginning at a point approximately 630 feet east of the center line of the intersection of Main Street and Pleasant Street, continuing 7,660 feet in an east direction. Mass DOT to widen Main Street. Existing utility poles along Main Street will need to be relocated, and to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for the distributing purposes. The public hearing will be held on November 2nd, 2021 in Conference Room A of the Grafton Public Memorial Municipal Center, located at 30 Providence Road. Remote meeting participation will be available, and the meeting link will be posted in the November 2nd agenda. The Selectmen's meeting begins at 7 p.m. The purpose of this meeting is to provide an opportunity for public comment. Anyone wishing to may attend via Zoom.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for Main Street?
I make a motion, we open the public hearing for the Main Street poll petition.
Second.
Motion made a second. Any discussion on opening the hearing? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. So today, similar ask from National Grid about moving the pole on Main Street for the project from the DOT. Does anyone from the board or from the public have any questions? If anyone's joining us via Zoom, you can use the raise hand function and I can bring you into the meeting if you should have any questions. Anyone from the board? Kim, just to confirm that this is the same thing we're doing on Murray Avenue?
That is correct.
Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing anybody come in. I can take a motion to close the public hearing.
Move the board vote to close the public hearing for the Main Street poll petition.
Sorry, man. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on closing, any discussion on closing the public hearing? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Declare motion carried unanimous. All right, so could I get a motion, board to consider about the request to move the poll?
I move the board vote to approve the poll petition for Main Street.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for the moving of the pole located on the Main Street. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Clear, motion carried unanimous. Okay. All right, Matt, you're on a roll. Could we get you to
I'm gonna
read the
keep
legal
going.
notice for Messier Street?
The Select Board will hold a public hearing on the request of National Grid and Verizon New England to locate poles, wires, fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way, Messier Street. Install one JO pole on Messier Street beginning at a point approximately 20 feet west of the center line of the intersection of Messier Street and Main Street. Install a new pole 0-50 on Messier Street, part of utility pole relocation for Mass DOT, road widening on Main Street Route 122A, and to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. The public hearing will be held on November 2nd, 2021 in Conference Room A of the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center located at 30 Providence Road. Remote meeting participation will be available and the meeting link will be posted in the November 2nd agenda. The Selectmen's meeting begins at 7 p.m. The purpose of this hearing is to provide an opportunity for public comment. Anyone wishing to may attend via Zoom.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I make a motion we open the public hearing for the poll petition for Messier Street.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on open the public hearing? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Clear, motion carried unanimous. All right, so Kim, just to confirm again that this is the same situation for, that we're doing on Murray and Main Street, correct? Well, I can't hear Kim, but I do know this is all part of that Main Street.
This is Scott. I can confirm that.
Thank you, Scott. Okay. Does anyone from the public wish to discuss or talk? Please use the raise hand function. I can bring you into the meeting. Any of the board members have any questions? I'm seeing this is a real hot topic for everybody. Nope. All right. I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
I move the board vote to close the public hearing for the Messier Street poll petition.
Second.
Motion made and second to close the public hearing. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Could I entertain a motion to grant the poll move for Messier Street?
I move the board vote to approve the poll petition as presented for Messier Street.
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded for moving the pole on Messier Street. Any discussion on that? From the board? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Clear, motion carried unanimous. Okay. Kim, Scott, thank you very much for coming out tonight. Look forward to letting us know when that work will be done so we can notify the residents as best as possible. If you could please reach out to the town administrator's office on those 3 locations, it'd be much appreciated.
Sure.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
All right, so I was notified by the chair of the Grafton Historic District Commission that they asked us for the pass over tonight on the Grafton Common Improvements change orders. They are not ready for us yet. So moving on to I'm sorry, I skipped one. Public hearing, fiscal year for 2022 tax classification. Do I have a
Would you like me to read the notice?
I would like you to read the notice, Matt.
Everybody sit.
The Grafton Select Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021 at 7 p.m. on the question of the adoption of the percentages of local tax levy to be borne by each class of real property and personal property for the next fiscal year in accordance with Chapter 40, Section 56 of the General Laws. The meeting will be held in Conference Room A of the Grafton Municipal Center at 30 Providence Road. Remote meeting participation will be available, and the meeting link will be posted on the November 2nd agenda. At such hearing, the Board of Assessors will provide all the information and data relevant to making such determination and the fiscal effect of the available alternatives. The Commissioner of Revenue will not approve the tax rate of the town until the Select Board has held such a public hearing and until the town has adopted the percentage of the local tax levy to be borne by each class of real and personal property. If you have a question to ask or comment to offer but cannot participate in the public hearing, you may submit the same by emailing to taoffice@grafton-ma.gov, by written letter sent via U.S. Postal Service, or by hand delivered to the Town Administrator's Office, Grafton Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road. All feedback must be received by noon, October 28th, 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I move the board vote to open the public hearing for the tax classification
Second.
for FY22.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, open the public hearing. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mary.
Thank you very much for taking the time to do this wonderful classification that we have to do every year. William's going to get the PowerPoint up for me. Perfect. And we can go to, so the purpose of the classification hearing is Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56, which allows the shift of the tax burden between the property classes. The classification hearing consists of 4 votes that is to be taken by the Select Board, a selection of a residential factor, an open space discount, a residential exemption, and a small commercial exemption. These 4 votes, the first one is a residential factor. This will shift the tax burden between the residential and the commercial properties. Open space discount shifts the burden to the residential from the open space. Residential exemption will shift the tax burden within the residential class itself. And a small commercial exemption will shift the burden within the commercial and industrial classes to give qualifying commercial properties a 10% discount. It does not give any discount to the industrials, just the commercials only. Okay. And I'd like to start off by letting you folks know how we establish the tax rate. So in order for us to establish our tax rate, we have to start with a total tax levy. Oh, next page. And we divide that by our total assessed value. And what is our tax levy? Our tax levy is the total taxes to be collected on our real estate and our personal property. And this is determined basically by the town meeting in October, and in May, the members vote to what they want to raise, whether it's, to cover the expenses. So for our tax levy, we start, how we come up with this tax levy is we start with our prior year levy limit, which was $44.448 million. Then we can add on any amended growth from last year, which was, we got $7,397. And this is where proposition comes into play. At that point, you can take that levy and you can increase it by 2.5%. So that 2.5% comes out to $1.111 million. Then we can add our growth on for this year, for 2022. We got $865,070 in growth. We did not do another override this year, so our levy limit for 22 is going to be $46,431,929. Okay, so now that we have our levy limit, now we can go in and we have to add in our debt exclusions, which is $3.563 million. The road stabilization and the capital stabilization fund is now added on to that. So we have a $1.5 million road stabilization and an $800,000 capitalization stabilization fund. Wow, that's a lot of stabilizations. So our maximum levy limit for this year is $52.0 million dollars. Okay, so now that we've got the actual maximum levy limit, our actual tax levy is $50,534,031, which is leaving us an excess levy limit of $1.761 million. And this is due to, we had the override last year and we did not spend it all, so which means it's gonna go out for another, so they'll have that monies for the next 3 or 4 years to spend. The next one, this is just showing you the historical tax levy that we've had over the years in the last 5 years, from our base to our new growth, our debt, our overrides, and our excess levies. For our new growth for this year, this is a chart just basically for the $865,070. 75% of that was residential growth. We did have another 17% in the personal property, and we got 7.45% in our commercial.
So, for me, that's a bit of a concern in the sense that we're losing not a lot of ground, but we're losing ground for commercial tax base increases versus residential.
And here's the historical growth in excess levy. Back last year in 2021, we were making some ground on that. We almost did 50-50 for our commercial and our residential. This year, the commercial was not, unfortunately, as high. There was a lot of houses being built this year.
So is that the primary factor? The fact that we had kind of lower construction costs, so we just, or sorry, higher home values, kind of balancing off. So now you had this like spurt of growth suddenly.
No, right now in the town, the amount of construction of new single-family homes is, Elm Rock, for instance, there's 22 houses built in basically a year and a half. So that is all brand new. Growth is only something that you've never assessed for.
Yep.
So those are all brand new, and those houses went up in that year and a half, all 22 of them.
So it's a timing when things came online.
Right.
Yeah.
I know, part of that growth for our commercial, you know, we did have, it wasn't a lot, but there was, MJ's came on because they did that whole front end of the store, so that was part of our growth.
Okay.
Anything that used to be tax exempt, that now is put back onto our tax roll. As a matter of fact, that building it used to be owned by the Small Business Bureau, or, and so once that came back on, once MJ's bought that, that's $1.7 million they paid for it.
Yeah.
That was part of that growth right there,
Okay.
because it had not been taxed previously.
And as soon as they fit all of that grow infrastructure out back, that's all going to be included as well.
Yes, that'll be all the back end, once they put the growth structure in there, anything they've added to that, we'll get the personal property,
Yep.
and we'll also get any growth from the changing of the use of that.
Got it.
And then we have 8 Pine Street that they're working on, so there's some big things going there.
And that falls under residential.
If it's a mixed use, it will not, it'll be half.
So, yeah,
The
the commercial
part-
portion of it will, yeah.
The commercial will be mixed use, so whatever portion is residential will go there, and then the rest would go into commercial.
But the new growth for next year would be, the residential's gonna be a lot smaller than 800, or whatever it was. I don't remember what it was. Because the amount of houses that are being built now are it's slowing down.
It's slowing down somewhat, but, there's still like Appaloosa, Carriage Lane
Yeah,
is up
there's still,
there.
it's still a lot of housing,
Right.
but it's gonna start to slow down. The commercial end of it is gonna go up from 7.65 to
We hope,
hopefully 10.
We
you know,
hope.
Which would be
right,
great.
because right now we're looking at our commercial and our residential is like a 90-10%.
Yep.
And so
Right.
we're hoping to gain ground, like you were saying,
Absolutely.
so, you know, you make a little headway and then,
85-15 would be really nice.
Mary, that previous slide, that was the makeup of our new growth?
yes.
So that's not the makeup of the entire town, that's just the
I
growth.
get it.
Okay,
Yeah. Right,
Yeah.
But this doesn't help the ratio.
right, I understand what you're
This hurts the ratio.
well, it actually, with the new growth that came on, we're still looking at a 90-10, very close on that, so it
Because
really.
this is on the margins.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the values in the town, because not only did our residential values go up across the board, our commercial, our land, everything has gone up from our sales from the prior year, so. It's kind of like a break even this year,
Okay.
so. And like I said, the next slide shows you, in 21, we had almost 50-50 of the growth split there,
And it's your percentages is by dollar value.
yes.
So if you had a large scale commercial project come online, that would skew your new growth chart on the last page up.
Right, if it was a big
Right.
commercial.
I mean, looking at that from 2012, that looks favorable. So
Right,
I know when I first started looking at this, it was 8-9%. So those, like, you know, we've got 31%, 17, 28, 16, 21. I don't know what the average is, but it's got to be in the 30s. That hasn't moved the dial a whole lot.
right,
That's
right.
all.
I mean, I can get you that average, and unfortunately, I don't think that slide's connected to the, my spreadsheet, sorry.
Yeah, it just
Absolutely.
calls out the fact that we need to do a lot more work to jack up our commercial development. I guess we knew that already.
We're trying, right?
We are. It's a tough nut to crack.
So, for our tax rate, we've got our maximum, what we're spending, our levy limit is the 50,534, and now we're gonna divide that by our total assessed value of the town. And our total assessed value, our increases are based on our sales, qualified sales from 2020. The overall assessed value for the town is $2.993 billion, which is an increase of 6.32% from last year. And this slide is showing you the historical over the years, over the past 5 or 6 years of the assessments in the town. So we've had a big jump in our values this year, up at 6.32. Last year was only 3.37. The year before that, we were at 7.45. The way the sales are running right now, I can see that percentage going to be probably maybe 8% increase for next year overall, because you know, the prices of the housing and even some of the businesses that have sold is they're $100,000-$200,000 over what I've got them assessed at. So
But so your assessed value goes up, your mill rate goes down.
that's correct.
At even.
But it doesn't mean your tax bill goes down, which
Sure.
you'll see.
No, I get it. I get it.
Yep. So it's nice to see the tax rate go down, but your values are all going up.
Right.
So
Sure.
okay.
Taxes never go down.
No, they don't.
Well, and people,
Well, maybe.
people should enjoy the appreciation of their home values for sure, right?
So the next slide here is, I've done a chart just showing, you know, the residential assessed values, for your single family, your condos, your 2 families, 3 families, and your apartments on how they have increased over the past 5 years. Okay. And then our next slide, it's just showing your commercial, industrial, and personal property assessed values over the past 5 years of each one, how they've grown. Personal property, we now, over the past couple of years, we've been getting some really good growth in assessed values on that, because I do have RRC comes in and they're a specialist on personal property. They do almost all of our accounts every year. They also do our utilities right now, because the state no longer is going to value all our utilities. So we have them valuing them, and your valuation comes out higher than when the state gave you the numbers. So, and it's mandated now by the state that you have to value your own utilities. So that's just a little,
That's great.
yeah. Okay, so for our assessed values, the average single-family assessment for 2022 is a value of $448,565. That's an increase of 5.64% from last year's values. This is just a slide showing the increase in the values and basically the tax rates just following along, but not spiking like the values in the house. And now that we have, the levy at 50,534, we divided that by our 2.993 assessed value. Comes out to 1688 per thousand. This is a decrease of 30 cents per thousand. Last year it was 1718 for 2021. Okay. And I brought the slide back on, just showing you the increase in the values of the houses, but the tax bill is just slowly following it, not spiking like the value is. Now that we have a tax rate of 1688, the average single family tax bill will be $7,572. This is an increase of $277 or 3.66% from last year's taxes.
Mary, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Can you go back to that slide, please?
Yep.
Thank you. So I see that the difference in the increase is on an average of $277 per single-family household. What was the difference in the value of a single-family home?
Oh, it was at 424 and some change, and it went up to 448 and change, and, whoops, where's my slide that I just had? Uh-oh.
So honestly, you could say basically the average single-family value went up year over this year is about 24,000 roughly.
Correct.
Okay.
It was-
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's assessed value, that's not market value, correct?
Well, we have to be at 100%
Yeah.
full and fair market value, so that is our assessed value, but I can tell you these houses that are listed at $450,000 are selling high fives.
Yeah.
So
So-
at
so-
least 100, if not more, over
Right.
what my assessment.
So the 448 is assessed, and then it doesn't relate to market value.
Well, we're just a year behind.
Yeah, I
So that's
understand.
why.
Yes, yeah.
You know, these values are gonna continue.
Yeah,
to go
because
up.
I think people would look at that and say, geez, you know, you look at the real estate transfers and it's, 5, 6, 7, 9.
Yeah.
It's up there, and
Mhm.
to be at 448 is actually pretty good, but.
Right. But for next year,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gonna be even
Right.
that much higher.
Yeah.
It's, the markets, and it's not just our town, it's all the towns,
Yeah.
surrounding towns, so.
But to that point, the tax rate would trend downward.
Correct. As you've noticed, it went from 1718, it's down to, it dropped, 30 cents, but your tax bill still went up
That's right.
because of your value. Okay, and once again, we're back to the purpose for the hearing is it's consisting of the 4 votes on your residential factor, your open space, your residential exemption, or your small commercial exemptions. So the first vote that needs to be taken is going to be your residential factor. This will shift the tax burden between the residential and your commercial class, or in other words, as a split tax rate. This next slide will show you that on line 1, whoops, I go to the next slide, I'm sorry. With no split, and you have a tax rate of $16.88 for both your residential and your commercials, your single family's paying $7,500. Your average commercial property is spending $10,872. So there's no change in those tax bills. Now, if you go down to, if you split that tax rate to 1.2, it will bring your single family down to $16.52. Your commercial tax rate will go up to $20.26. So your single family will save approximately $162. It will cost your commercial properties another $2,100. And the wider the split, the more the increase is to the commercial properties. The next slide just shows you on the split how drastic the commercial tax bills would go up compared to the slight decrease in your single families or your residential properties.
At what point did towns start considering that? Like we're at 90-10 now.
85-15.
I mean, is it
It's even-
20, 25
yeah,
or
it's-
30%? I mean,
I would think it's up there. I can't give you the exact numbers, but I did work in Auburn for 5 years, and they did have a split tax rate. and they have a lot of commercial, so they were up about the 35%
Okay.
on their commercials. And then, we did find out once you split that rate, it's very difficult to bring that rate back together.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, that's a one-way street.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know Sturbridge they used to have a split rate years ago, and instead of gradually putting it back, they just slammed the rate right back to a single rate.
Wow.
1 year. It hurt for the first year, but, you know,
Huh.
yeah, so. Okay. Next, we have the open space discount. That's question number 2, and open space discount, you can give up to 25% discount to the open space. It will increase your residential tax rate. Just to note, we don't have any classified open space, so that's taxable. We have a lot of open space, but it's not under a classification as open space.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Question number 3 would be for our residential exemption. Okay. You can give up to a 20% discount to any owner-occupied residential properties. The impact is on the overall residential class. It will shift the tax burden from your less expensive homes to your higher-priced and non-residential homes. Benefits to this exemption would be for areas that have a lot of vacation homes, like your Cape, and or a lot of rental properties, like the Boston area and things like that. So they would use something to that effect. Right now, because we have like 94% of the people actually living in their homes, and that's, a good estimate on that. It's not going to shift that burden to the non-owner occupied. Can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. This here is showing your residential exemption. So you take your parcels, you take the total value of those parcels, you divide it by, you have your average single family. A 20% exemption would be discounted off anybody that qualifies for that exemption. Like I said, there's approximately 94 residential properties in town that would qualify. That would bring your new residential tax rate to 2109 for everyone. And then you would give that discount. The lower single family, the lower family homes they'll probably save $629 average. A $448,000 house will stay the same because that's kind of your break even point. But then anybody, about 800,000, they're going to be paying $1,400 more. So, like I said, that just increased the tax rate to 2109 for every residential property. And the last vote that needs to be taken is for your small commercial exemptions. This exemption can give up to 10% off the value. The property has to be less than $1 million in assessed value, and every business in that property has to have less than 10 employees. Each individual parcel would need to be reviewed and qualified before that tax rate is set. This would increase the commercial and industrial tax rate, and it shifts the burden onto the larger commercial properties and all of your industrial. Because if you remember, this is just for commercials, and the industrial properties will bear the burden, but they're not allowed the tax exemption. And there's probably 5, I think it's up to 7 now, 7 communities in the state of Massachusetts that have that. And Auburn was one of them.
Auburn has everything.
Yeah. So what happens is you do that, and because they do that exemption and they have that split rate, they actually end up with a tax rate for your commercial, a tax rate for your personal property, and a different tax rate for your residential. So they have 3 tax rates every year. And historically, over the years in the town of Grafton, the residential factor was 1, which was no split, no open space because we discount because we don't have any. We have a no on a residential and no on the small commercial exemption. And then the motion required after that. Does anybody have any questions?
So before we get to the motions tonight, this is a public hearing, so if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to speak at the tax classification, as well as anyone who is in the attendees list, please feel free to raise your hand, and I can pull you into the meeting if you have any comments. But does the board have any other further questions while we wait for anyone from the public who may want to join?
No, thank you, Mary. Well done.
I just have one comment, which is, so we have 1.7 million in excess levy capacity.
Correct.
We need to marry that with our 5-year projection. And we need to predict when our next override is. I know it's not an exact thing, and I know that's gonna be an uncomfortable exercise to go through. But we need to be talking about that and making sure that everybody understands exactly where we're at relative to what the original plan was for raising an additional $4 million in levy capacity. It's a really important thing. It's something I'm really passionate about. And when we talk about things like budget sustainability, that's a really important one. If we're ever going to have another shot at getting an override to sustain our level of service, we have to be talking about this on a yearly basis, not just when our next override is coming up over the next year or so. So I'm going to insist that this board talk about that at some point relatively soon, because it's an incredibly important thing to be engaging with the community on. We had a plan for 4 to 5 years. We need to be sticking to that plan. We need to be tracking to that plan and making sure we've got lots of opportunities with cannabis coming online, with ARPA funds coming online, to do lots of things, to potentially, squeeze some additional years out of this override, and we have to be taking advantage of those opportunities as much as possible. But this is a big one for us. It's not just for this board. It should be for every single board that Grafton has, because it's a systemic issue for us. It's not something that needs to be dealt with a year or two before we need an override. It's something that we have to be talking about every single year. So I'll get off my soapbox, but that's an important one. That number, our excess levy capacity, and how we spend that down, it's crucial to the public discussion.
I have a quick question along those lines. So what was our excess levy capacity from last year?
Excess levy last year was 2.282,
And this year's proposed is 1.7?
1.761, which is a difference of 521,125.
Okay.
Last year's projection, we should have ended at 1.5, so we're 271 to the good.
That's great. So again, we've got some. I think we've got some headwinds
Mhm.
Over the coming year or two. We've got to take advantage of those. But more importantly, we're going to have headwinds and tailwinds along the way. We have to be clearly articulating where we're at to make sure that lots of people don't pay attention until we have a vote on an override, and then there's all of this public discussion about how there's mismanagement of funds in town and all that. Our best inoculation to that is to be consistently discussing our levy capacity, where we're at with overrides, and the fact that we're continuing to manage our money to the extent possible to squeeze every dollar that we have available. So I'll get back off my soapbox.
I didn't think you got off it.
But letting people know that we're, like you said, we're in the good, that's part of the conversation too. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom the whole time, although it usually is.
Yeah, and 271 to the good is,
To the good.
yeah, to the good. It's not, I mean, it's
It's not a
a
lot.
$70 million budget, so it's not,
Yeah.
I can spend that in 6 minutes. With gaps that we need to plug. I mean, you can. When you're spending $70 million a year, unfortunately, $271,000 sounds like a lot of money. It's really not.
Absolutely.
But when we're
Very
talking
totally.
about our excess levy capacity and trying to meet 5 years, if we can continue that trajectory, now we're at 7.
Right.
Yep,
Um,
100%.
so, and there's a lot of different market and environmental factors that come into us being able to sustain that. So, but while we're going through the budget process, that'll be something that we're talking about, which is, you know, our 2-year, 3-year, 5-year projection, as well as, you know, what are some of the environmental risk factors that we have that we want to try to mitigate now. We don't want to eat up all of that capacity, and then as soon as something happens, it's catastrophic. We need the buffer.
Absolutely, and there were a lot of numbers that were that went into the original override discussions and projections. Those need to be updated.
Mhm.
That's that's the part and parcel of good budget management, is that you take the assumptions that you have the time, at the time that you go for an override, you update those, you make sure that they're continuing to be relevant, and people understand why those changes are made. They could be good or bad. I mean, there's lots of things. Beyond a year or two, it's nearly impossible to have any kind of realistic budget projections. We all know that. But as those things evolve and as those factors come into play, we have to be noting them, we have to be making them public and changing those projections.
No one else from the public has raised their hand to ask to come in for the public hearing, so if the board has any other comments, we can take this minute to close out the comment section and get to the business at hand. Okay, I can entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move the board vote to close the fiscal year 2022 tax classification public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and second to close the public hearing. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. All right, so tonight we have a number of motions to make and in specific order. If the board would,
I just have one. I think it encapsulates all of our
Yeah,
decisions.
it's,
we
one,
can do that? Okay.
if you'd like.
We can do it all in one. As long as Mary says it's okay, Matt, I'm okay with it.
All right. Then I will move the board vote to accept a residential factor of 1.0, no open space discount, no residential exemption, no small commercial exemption, and give authorization to the principal assessor to electronically sign and submit the LA5 to the Department of Revenue.
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, before we go, Mary, again, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you for answering our questions and having all the data always available to us. I have to say, watching you over these past few years has been delight. I've learned more about tax classification, I think, in these past 3 or 4 years than I think I have since I started getting involved in town government. But thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. It's
Yeah,
been
you've
an
been a real
honor.
credit to Grafton.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Tammy. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay, I asked the board, before I prematurely skipped over D, on the tax classification, that we're gonna pass over the Grafton Common Improvements contract change orders. And next up, we're gonna go for a one-day beer and wine license for Community Harvest Project. This is in the VFW post. So both of these, organizations have, seeked one-day beer and wine licenses from the past. Does anyone have any questions or comments? If not, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to grant a one-day beer and wine license to the Community Harvest Project on November 7th, 2021, and a one-day beer and wine license to the Veterans of Foreign Wars on November 14th, 2021.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion on the motion for the 2 one-day beer and wine licenses? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have salt contracts.
Yeah.
Super exciting.
So every day, it's the annual ritual for the board. But I'm gonna say, Evan, do you have any comments or questions? I know this is pretty straightforward, but
It's pretty straightforward. It's going to be more money. Salt prices are up. But I think, given what's coming, or what's been going on and what's happening, especially with shipping, that's to be expected. So
Let's hope for a warm winter.
Yeah, hope for a very,
It's global warming, though, is it?
70 to 75 anyway.
there you go. Oh, boy.
Very good.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? None, I can entertain a motion when anyone's ready.
I move the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign the Morton Salt contract as the primary salt supplier for the town of Grafton in FY22 at the cost of $62.20 per ton.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Good. Motion carried unanimous. Thank you.
All right, I have a second, which is I move the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign the Eastern Minerals contract as the secondary salt supplier for the town of Grafton in FY22 at the cost of $64.50 per ton.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declared. Motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much. So tonight we have the resignation, select board assistant. I could take a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the resignation of the select board assistant. What's the date?
November 5th,
November
2020.
2nd.
As of November 5th, 2021.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah.
Doreen?
I'd just like to say thank you to Joanne for all her hard work, and I felt that she really went above and beyond many times. I know there's a lot of work going on in the office, and I just want to thank her for that and wish her well.
Any other
And
comments?
on that, I think that somebody else is going to benefit from her hard work and experience,
Agree.
and it's really a shame that she decided to leave, and we got a big hole to fill there.
Yep, we certainly do.
I would just like to say, over the past year and a half as chair, I've had the pleasure of working with Joanne. She has helped facilitate and assist us with setting up these meetings, and over the past year and a half, by no means was it a small task. I wish her all the very best. I know she's still working in town hall in other capacities, and I wish her all the very best in those endeavors. And I'm sure we'll see her around. All right, if there isn't any other comments or questions, I'll call the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, so next up here, we have scheduled here Affordable Housing Trust. We have three individuals who had shown interest in the last advertisement. So tonight we have Stratos Bonos, Elizabeth Coveney, and Lakeisha Carpenter Papu, I'm going to say the Sakis,
Papasakis.
Papasakis. Thank you.
You got it.
All right. I apologize, Lakeisha.
It's not great when Matt's correcting you.
It's
He's had a
okay.
rough night.
Not mad at all.
Thank you for the indulgence. So first up, we're just going to go in order. I just want to know if Stratos Bonos is here tonight. I don't see
No.
Stratos in the audience, nor I see in the attendees list.
Oh, okay.
All right, why don't we move off to the next on the list here, Elizabeth Coveney. Elizabeth, how are you?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing great. Thank you for the Zoom invite. I am Zooming in from Steeler Country. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So at least I don't have to wear a mask in my hotel room. So that's the good news. So it's nice to meet all of you. My name is Elizabeth Coveney. I am a 27-year proud resident of Grafton. My husband Keith and I have raised 5 of our children in the Grafton community, and we have certainly benefited from the amazing schools and volunteer and community events and friendships that truly define our family. And we've also been very involved. And so I applied to this role, the Affordable Housing Trust, because I truly think of my life in kind of 3 distinct areas of growth. First is to learn, the next is to earn, and then certainly to serve. And it would be my privilege to serve the citizens of Grafton and work collaboratively with the Affordable Housing Trust to deliver on the goals of the trust. So, as an entrepreneur and an executive sales leader, I'm able to bring creative problem solving, business strategy. I've led large teams. I've worked in the consumer products industry for the Coca-Cola company. I've worked in the advertising world. And I just really enjoy building and leading teams. In my career, I have proven success with strategic planning and tactical execution. And I really believe I'm a strong analytical leader who can balance emotional intelligence with intellectual curiosity. And so I would just ask, as I'm thinking about how I have been successful, I think about being able to balance that emotional, curiosity and intellectual curiosity and emotional intelligence. But I also believe it's really comes down to listening intently and thinking creatively and planning and executing effectively. And so I love to bring my business acumen and my enthusiasm, my aptitude to lead with a collaborative mindset. And that's what I'd really like to contribute to the Affordable Housing Trust and certainly to the citizens of Grafton. So that is my interest and desire to serve.
All right. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Does any board members have any questions? Colleen?
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for applying. I see on your application that you live on Worcester Street, and I was wondering if you were familiar at all with the Affordable Housing Trust project that they're talking about on Worcester Street.
I am. Somewhat, yes.
Okay. How do you, I guess, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think I did attend the listening session, Colleen, and I thought that it was great that there was a pause put into place and that there was going to be more due diligence. I really, thought Brittany Morgan brought a lot of kind of expertise to the board or to the committee. And so I was very grateful and appreciative that, there's more listening that will occur and more fact finding. I think something that I really enjoy doing is being grounded in the data and the facts and understanding kind of all the options, problem solving and looking for, how we can collaboratively work together for a solution.
Matt, you had your hand up next.
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much for applying. Your resume that you submitted is really impressive, actually. I'm super psyched that we see you have a couple of land trust involvements that you have on the resume. I'm wondering, how you balance, and this is something that I struggle with quite a bit, actually, myself, personally. How do you, as we think about land development, how do you balance those needs for open space and housing? Because they're both fairly urgent and very much relevant in Grafton.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. My land trust in both the Loon Echo Land Trust and the Grafton Land Trust is more on a volunteer basis. So I have sat on many boards. I've sat on larger scale boards and nonprofit boards, and I believe that again we have to go back to the data and understanding what is the mission and the vision of and the objective. So there is a strategic plan in place, and so I think you have to really understand and and respect all of the stakeholders that are involved. So I think when you have open space, but we have to do the due diligence against ensuring that all options are exhausted before we start to, invade open space. And that was another area of interest to me was the Recreation Committee and the Open Space Committee, because I think it's it is a true contributor to the value of everything we have in Grafton. So you don't want to forego one for another, but I think they have to be equally assessed.
Interesting. I'm going to just feedback on that a little bit. I think open space is an easier priority to support. Coming on to the Land Trust and attending that listening session made me acutely aware of how challenging housing development is in Massachusetts. And I don't know what the right formula is. I don't know what the right answer is. that's going to continue to be a challenge for this town, to try to figure out how to get that right balance. So, but thank you for your candid answer. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
Any board members have any other questions for Elizabeth?
I had one. Matt kind of answered it a little bit. Well, Elizabeth answered it in her answer to Matt, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. You would be an asset, in my opinion, on any board or committee in the town. And so my question is, why the Affordable Housing Trust, and what is your vision, your personal vision of sitting on the trust and collaborating with other members and the community?
Yeah, I think so. I have led teams, but I've also been on a multiple leadership teams, and I think having that collective voice in the room where you have a diverse group of people and you're able to bring a better work product because you have diversity of thought, you have diversity of experiences, and the Affordable Housing Trust, it just, I've only been to one meeting, and it was the listening session because I wanted to learn more. So I'm a very open-minded individual, and I wanted to make sure I was grounded in facts. And it just felt like there could be more diversity on the board. And so that's why that particular, that board appealed to me. The second thing is I work a lot with the foster care community. And I work with the Department of Children and Families, and there's just a tremendous need for resources, and I see it all the time because in my role as a foster care reviewer, the housing is the number one reason why families are not reunified with their children, and it's because there just is such a vacant, there's not enough affordable housing. And so it's a personal passion of mine because I believe in it and I believe that it's important for the community. So those are really the two drivers for, why affordable housing, why that was of interest.
Thank you.
Any other board member have any questions? Elizabeth, I have one question, and this really has to do with just your own residence in close proximity to 25 Worcester Street and being a butter to that property. How do you foresee your involvement if this board were to appoint you on that committee today? And how do you foresee yourself giving input to something that your property abuts?
Right.
Probably the main topic that I think everyone in the town is probably aware of is 25 Worcester Street.
Yes, I guess you have to put your address on when you apply for committees, right? I have been a leader for 35 years, and I believe I've been successful in my career by having an open mind, a thoughtful perspective, and, again, the data and the information that informs my position. And so I feel very strongly about collaboration. I feel very strongly about having a point of view and having a clarity in terms of a position. So if it comes down to having, if there's concern over how I would vote or how I would interpret data or what I would do, then that would be concerning because I would want my peers on the board to be in support of my position and of my role on the board. So, there's certainly ways around that if it's recusing myself from those conversations, but 25 Worcester Street's a pretty big part of the Affordable Housing Trust conversation today. And so, I would want to, again, be a very neutral party. Yes, my property abuts the area as it has for 27 years. So it would just be important for me to have a very level-headed approach and understand what all of the facts, the data, and quite frankly, the voices from all of the constituents, and listen to those voices. I think that we all have the responsibility to do that in an endearing way.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Right.
would there be some level of conflict? I mean, obviously Elizabeth's very qualified to be on this committee, but my concern is that we have a committee, we're talking about, and everybody's talking about 25 Worcester Street, we're not talking about the other things that are going on as far as affordable housing. But when it came down to a vote of the committee, would Elizabeth have to not only recuse from the conversations, but also the votes, because she is a direct abutter to the property? That's a concern, and maybe somebody can answer that question. I look at it and say, it is a conflict, and that she would not be able to use her skills on this committee on this piece of property. Every other piece of property, absolutely, but you know, any other affordable housing, but this piece of property, you would need to, it'd be like the planning board. You know, if your piece of property abutted this, you have to recuse yourself, leave the room, and not be involved in the vote at all. So, you know.
Well, I think it's a great question. If you don't mind me just asking,
No,
I guess
yeah.
come back is,
No.
I think it's a great question. I guess my question back would be, you know, we're all residents of Grafton, so there's a variety of different affordable housing projects. I don't know if anyone else has any proximity to some of the other sites that are being developed or being, you know, are in question. And so, yes, I mean, it is, you know, I do abut that property, but as we're all, you know, residents of Grafton, I'm sure that we're relatively close to some of the other properties, if not near Worcester Street itself. So, you know, I don't know what the rules are. I don't know if there's, you know, any conflict, to use your word.
Yeah, no,
I can say from,
there are conflicts on this board, on the planning board, on conservation,
Mhm.
because someone may come before this board that are either related to me or I have done business with. I have to step down.
Mhm.
Same in the planning board, same in conservation or any other board. My
Mhm.
concern is that once 25 Worcester Street hits the table,
Right.
you have to leave the room.
Mhm.
And that's the only piece of property that the trust actually owns, correct? So it's
Correct.
the biggest project they have going on. I know they're talking about possibilities for other projects, but this is the only piece of property that they own. So to be a direct abutter does seem to me like a conflict as well.
And don't get me wrong, Elizabeth. I'm trying to. I think you'd be great, you know, on this trust. But I get concerned that the biggest project that we're going to have go on that involves the trust, you're not going to be able to be involved in.
Right.
Is that true?
Yeah, do you want me to read you
Yes.
the?
Yeah.
Please.
So, there's oftentimes I find when working with boards, there's two different conflicts of interest, right? There's the perceived conflict of interest of how do you get public support or public trust when you appear to have a conflict. And then there's something that's in direct conflict with Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, which is the conflict of interest law. And so I'll just read you one section that's part of a bulletin, voting matters on affecting abutting or nearby property. Participation in a particular matter. The conflict of interest law defines participation as participating in agency action or in a particular matter personally and substantially through approval, disapproval, decision, recommendation, the rendering of advice, investigation, or otherwise. Thus, a public employee, which appointed members are public employees, participates not only when he makes a final decision or a vote on the matter, but also when he discusses the merits of a matter with a colleague or makes a non-binding recommendation. A particular matter is any judicial or other proceeding, application, submission, request for a ruling or other determination, contract, claim, controversy, charge, accusation, arrest, decision, determination, or finding. Right? Super clear.
Thanks for
In short, I believe that being in a butter would be a direct conflict.
Yeah.
However, what I'm not 100% sure on is whether or not that could be mitigated by a disclosure, which would be a 20B disclosure.
Well,
Sure.
yeah, you can mitigate it by a disclosure, absolutely, okay, but this will add another factor to
Right.
this because it could directly affect the value of that property,
Well, and that's
that brings
Right.
in another whole.
that's
situation.
why I said there's generally, I found two different conflicts of interest. There's
Yeah.
the conflict of interest law, and then there's the appearance of a conflict, which a board
Yeah.
may want to avoid in its entirety.
Right.
The trust has a pretty uphill battle already. You don't need to add another layer to it.
And I just want to say too, like, we're not enforcement in this, right?
No,
So
no,
Any
no.
one of us, it's not up to us to say, you to me or me to you, like, you can't be participating. That's on you. And if someone's got a complaint, they go to the state. But that's what you have the attorney of the day for, from the Attorney General's office. And I just wanted to, bring that up because I did see the close proximity, and just I wanted the board to be aware of that before we make this appointment, because this is the only parcel that the Affordable Housing Trust does obtain known. So, but I do believe that, if this board decides on whatever it is tonight, Elizabeth, those resources, and to anyone else who's listening out here, who's on other board or committee, that resource is available to you. If you need, help getting in touch with them, I'm sure if you reach out to the clerk's office, they can help you out who to contact. But it is the Attorney General's division on conflict of interest, and there's usually an attorney of the day where you call and kind of lay out the whole situation, and that counsel is personal to you. It's not known to the public. So, all right. Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I just want to be very clear. I don't see this as disqualifying somebody because they have a potential conflict of interest, as participating on any, trust board or committee, or commission necessarily. It's a factor for us to consider, but it's by no means disqualifying whatsoever. It's a small town. We all have conflicts of interest with various matters, and it really is up to the individuals to sort of determine which conversations and votes they get to participate in. So we all take the conflict of interest training, and I think everybody understands that playing field pretty well.
All right.
Okay.
Any other board members have any other questions?
Not at this time.
Elizabeth, do you have any questions for us?
Well, I would just say I can either sell my house, just kidding, or just a thought. I mean, it would grow the area of the number of acreages. But I don't want this to be a distraction by any means. And I do believe very much in affordable housing, and I do believe in serving the town of Grafton. And so I don't have any questions. I appreciate the insight and the concern over being in a butter. And I would just, certainly continue to want to support and to contribute and to serve. So I guess I will, close there and just say thank you for the consideration tonight.
All right. Thank you very much for coming on, Elizabeth. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So next up, we have Lakeisha. Lakeisha, how are you this evening?
Good, and yourselves?
Very well, thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Do you just want to give a little bit about yourself one more time? I know we've gone through the interview before, but if you want to, go through that again, I'd be more than happy to give you the floor for a few minutes, and we'll just go into questions from the board.
I guess a brief overview again for those that didn't hear the first time. I'm a resident of Grafton, approximately about 3 years now. Have 4 kids, 3 of which are in Grafton public school systems. I was serving on Together We Can until it disbanded. I previously have served on other affordable housing boards, Longmeadow, East Longmeadow, which is in the western part of the state. I think that, again, I bring a lot to the table. I've done this before. I've done this, I don't know if anybody knows anything really about Longmeadow or East Longmeadow, but they're very similar in terms of town size, history, proximity to major cities, just as Grafton is, Long Meadow, East Long Meadow's proximity to, it's the suburban towns for Springfield, just as Grafton is like suburban town for Worcester. So I'm extremely well versed in, the complexities of trying to make sure that people are able to afford housing in those types of neighborhoods, but also being able to keep aesthetically the balance of, preservation of what you bought into those neighborhoods to begin with, why people wanted to be in those types of neighborhoods, such as Grafton. So I don't know if you want me to go even, I could talk forever, but I'm going to keep it short because I know everybody's been having a long night. So.
Well, thank you very much, Lakeisha. Appreciate that. Does any board members have any questions for Lakeisha? Doreen?
I want to ask the same question that I asked Elizabeth. Hi, Lakeisha. Nice to see you again.
Hi.
So I just want to know, I sort of know the answer of why the Affordable Housing Trust, but what is your overall vision for the Affordable Housing Trust in Grafton, and how do you plan to collaborate with other members on the trust?
I want other, for me, I think that everyone should be able to enjoy the beauty of a town like Grafton, and being able to afford a town like Grafton, which has skyrocketed, in prices, in the last 10 years. But there is such a value that you get by living in a town such as Grafton that I think it only benefits us as a community if people are able to afford to live there, And so I don't want to lose the closeness of our community, the values of our community, because we've outpriced people that, due to our economy, can no longer afford to live in Grafton. And so that's, really important to me, to be able to retain, our population, and also be able to enhance, what Grafton has to offer as a community, and being able to have all these different various types of influences, but meanwhile maintaining the rich heritage of Grafton.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Lakeisha? No? Okay. All right. Lakeisha, thank you very much for coming out. Appreciate it. You don't have any questions for us, do you?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. All right, so Stratos, I don't believe has shown, so at this point, I want to thank the members for their interest for coming out tonight, and for Elizabeth and Lakeisha for coming in Zoom and speaking with us. At this point, I'll open the board up for discussion about who they feel that they would like to appoint to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Colleen, go ahead.
So the Affordable Housing Trust usually meets the second Thursday of the month at 7:45. However, this month that happens to be Veterans Day, so it was passed along to me that they will be meeting on the 18th this month, but it's typically the second Thursday of the month, just so everybody knows.
Same time, you said?
Same time.
Yep. Any other discussion from the board? No? Okay, if there isn't, I can entertain a motion if someone would like to go on an appointment.
Oh, go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
No, go ahead.
I move the board vote to appoint Lakeisha Carpenter Papatakis to the Affordable Housing Trust for a term to expire on June 30, 2023.
Second.
Motion made at second. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I'd
You
like
go ahead,
to,
Doreen.
I just, I want to thank Elizabeth for throwing her hat in the ring. I agree. I think that Lakeisha, I really like that she has Affordable Housing Trust experience. I mean, she's been in front of us before, so we all know. And I'm also a little concerned that if members of our board had a conflict issue with an abutter on the property, that means the public would as well. And so I believe that this is the right decision to appoint to the trust tonight.
Any other questions or comments on the motion?
I agree with that. I just think also language matters a lot. and what I heard from Lakeisha was very much from the heart around making affordable housing available in Grafton.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's a real challenge for teachers, for firefighters, for people that are trying to live and work here in town to afford Grafton. And so I don't know, those comments really resonated with me pretty deeply.
Me too.
Any other questions or comments on the board? Before we take a vote? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Because the motion carried unanimous. Thank you, Lakeisha. Thank you, Elizabeth, for coming out tonight. Lakeisha, just wait for a letter from the clerk's office and come down and get sworn in before your first meeting on or before the 18th of November.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, next up we have appointment.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Sorry.
you, Elizabeth.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
Next up, we have election worker appointment tonight. Any questions or comments? I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to appoint Brian Langevin as an election worker with a term to expire on June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made at second. Any discussion on the motion of appointment? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. Thank you. We don't have any TA appointments tonight. We don't have any new business tonight. Do we have any select board member reports tonight? No? Okay. We'll move over to Evan for town
You want to
administration.
talk about MJ's?
Do I want to talk about MJ?
I mean, you were there.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, thank you. So, on behalf,
He forgot the whole
I was,
time.
Apparently not. I don't know.
it was a long week last week. My only downtime was attending a ribbon cutting ceremony, and I actually quite enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Those few hours that I was away from my work last week. But I wanted to just say we were all invited to go to a ribbon cutting that was hosted by the Blackstone Valley Regional Chamber of Commerce. And they did the ribbon cutting ceremony for the opening of Grafton's first adult use cannabis location located off of the Centennial Drive area. I just want to say I was received warmly, respectfully, and it was great. They put on a great demonstration. They showed us around the store. It resembles a jewelry store. I'm not going to lie to you. It was very well put together. No one was getting in through that front door, even with all the guests there, without showing their ID and then writing down who was coming in and taking a photo of your ID. I was very impressed by the procedures and security, and that they even took it to that extent, even while they knew that they had guests there for ribbon cutting. But I just wanted to congratulate the members of MJ's Market and the management team. Congratulations on being Grafton's first. We look forward to them, working in a very responsible, effective way for the residents and the surrounding communities, providing their service. But anyway, it was well attended, and Matt attended with me as well.
Yeah, it was great. I'm looking forward to the revenue and the jobs.
I thought you were gonna say something else.
Nope. But for anybody who's interested, it's a beautiful store.
It really is. Yeah,
They did a really good job.
they did.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, I've got a number of things, so I'll tick down the list, and if anybody wants to talk about anything deeper, just
Go for it.
stop me.
Okay.
All right, so as of I think it's going to probably be November 15th, the town will no longer be utilizing SeeClick Fix. That is our app where you can report issues. So we spent some time reviewing the cost versus benefit, and right now with the little use that we're getting, it costs about $45 every time somebody submits. So it's really not cost effective given all the other modes that we can have interaction with the public. And that doesn't take into account repetitive complaints that aren't actually viable things that we can fix for people. So Will and I we're exploring other methods, but the SeeClick Fix method is going to go away. And so we'll do a press release on that and make sure everybody's aware. Of the other methods, you have to contact us, which is via the website. We have a form that you just put what you want in there, and it comes right to us. It just doesn't do the mapping, but we've been looking at some other technologies that have a really cool back end that we think might better suit the town for the same or less money.
Would you still have an app front end?
Yeah, so we're looking at a couple different features that give you an app interface. So it's basically like the Grafton app.
Yep.
So there's some options there. Again, it comes down to cost benefit. I mean, you know, if you've got a average year, we have 120 submissions. That includes repetition or things that we have no real reason to be in this app. And it's really like the same 10 or 15 people that use it out of 20,000. So we're gonna have to we need to find a better way. We get more, I don't want to keep calling them complaints. We get more resident input via phone and email by a long shot than we do through that app.
Got it.
So I don't want to see us spend another $5,000 for minimal benefit to the public.
Yep. I'm with you.
I know I've seen a lot of stickers around. Will those all be
Oh
removed?
yeah, scraping away.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Sorry, William.
Yeah. Oh, it's not William.
Oh, it's not.
It'll probably end up being me.
No.
Knowing you.
No, I'm not going to give you something sharp.
Oh,
Fair point. You are learning.
We just need new bumper stickers to go
Yeah,
over the top.
we're just gonna Colleen will make us new stickers that go
That's
over it.
great.
yeah.
He's gonna cricket it over
Yeah.
it.
Candy's having me make her something, so I'm gonna cricket the town clerks.
Okay.
Moving on.
Oh, she is. I really am.
So DPW is up working on George Hill Road this week. They are doing drainage at 130, which I've mentioned before. So they've got probably about a third of the pipe in the ground as of this afternoon. William and I went up there a little bit and hung out and checked it out, and they're doing really good work, making really good progress. So by the end of the week, that'll be done. All things.
You were two of the guys standing around while they worked.
Well, it's a municipal job site, so we were 2 of 7,
Okay, I see.
and there was one guy working. That's how that goes. No, I'm kidding.
And all the shovels were standing up
Right,
by themselves,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. No, no.
They're all standing
It-
like this.
If you did go by, yes, Will and I were the 2 looking in the hole. Like,
Just nodding.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, wow, that's dirty in there.
Hey,
We should not be out there.
Every job needs a foreman.
That's right. That's right. So no, but they were. I'm kidding. Obviously, everyone was working very hard and making very good
No,
progress.
it's good to make. Yeah.
even
make
even
progress.
with sandbags in front of the originating point of the water, while they were putting the pipe in, there's still 6 inches of water.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
How long is this gonna be going on for?
how long is the project?
Yeah.
It'll be done by Friday.
Okay.
We'll be out.
Okay.
They're not closing the road or anything, but if you do go through there, take it easy because
Yeah.
they're backing in and out and stuff. So, but I think that's a really good starting place for us to be doing some repair work up there, and we're gonna keep that forward momentum hopefully.
Evan, I just want to comment. I
Yeah.
did see some of the video posted on people's social media sites today, and I saw some of the residents really coming out and thanking the crews for doing that. I know we had some delays in receiving the most important piece, which was the corrugated pipe, the size that they needed, but it was really great seeing them work, and I saw that they made a lot of progress even in the short video clip that I saw. But I just want to thank all the DPW crews and all of the town here for really not waiting on this, assessing and taking action. And I know this is just a Band-Aid, but we will, for the community's sake, we are working on long-term improvements more permanently for all of George Hill Road area.
Absolutely, yeah. Everybody got right on it, and it's a big pipe. 36-inch pipe doesn't sound big until you're standing next to it, and it's a big piece of plastic. So,
Good.
Good to see that. Good to see that going on. Budget process, we're just now starting in earnest to get things ready. We did our initial training passes last week with ClearGov, so the initial budget will come out next week, and we'll be requesting department heads maintain a level services budget, and then put things into the comment section of above level service request if it's there. So that'll be fun. We're finally going to start plugging away at that with hopefully a timeline of, I think we're looking at end of December for final budget submission to my office.
Okay.
Yeah. Library keeps on trucking along. We're really down to little nitpicky stuff on the punch list. And if you go by, you'll see that they're working pretty rapidly on the landscape around the front and side, and that's coming out beautifully. Really nice wall work, especially if you take a ride by. The common, we're just waiting on change order stuff for the gazebo, and that's really in the design phase and back and forth. We did, of course, have somebody drive through the new portion of the common less than 24 hours after we had erected it. So I did meet last week with the insurance company to start the claims process. So hopefully by end of next week we'll have check in hand and we can start the repair work before we get into winter condition and it gets too cold.
Can I ask
Sure.
something about that? So we had brought up, I think it was the beginning of the summer, about just traffic safety in general in different areas of town, and this might be a good opportunity to ask the traffic study committee to maybe review what's going on, in the common and maybe even perhaps other areas of town, so we can just kind of find out. I mean, we're not the planner, but certainly there are definitely, because I think the east side was hit too at one point, right? We've lost 2 of the arches since they've been
Not these arches, but I think there was an accident that took out a
right.
piece of infrastructure
Right,
prior.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I could always reach out to Chief Crapo and ask him to put this on the agenda for next time traffic safety committee meets and have that conversation.
It's one thing to hit a piece of cement. It's another to hit a person, and I don't want to wait till that happens. I'd like to just have this reviewed.
Why aren't there lights in that area? I mean, historically, does anybody know why there aren't?
No.
There wasn't a big outcry to say no lights, don't put lights here?
Not to my knowledge. I
Okay.
would assume it has something to do with that it's in a historic district, but at this point we have a lot of pedestrians, a lot of traffic. It's a state road, and it's dangerous, and
Well-
especially with the new library, I feel like that there's a couple of crosswalks there that are dangerous, and the cars going 40 miles an hour through the common. It's
Yeah,
just
historically,
Just
there
in
weren't cars.
talking to Chief Crapo though, at the MJ's thing, I mean, he indicated that somebody just fell asleep. So it doesn't matter if you have a light there or,
Yeah.
that's going to be a situation that's not to say that it shouldn't be part of the conversation in terms of traffic safety, but lights wouldn't have helped, I guess, in that circumstance.
right.
I think the only way you address it, and again, it's like what they did in the common to kind of slow the traffic down, the common with traffic, is to put gradual turns in before you get to that intersection. But I don't see them doing that with just the close proximity of where the library sits and then where, Hunter's Grill and Tab sits and when, Grafton Inn.
And
I don't
it's
know
a state
how you
highway.
do that.
Yeah.
There we go, it's a state highway.
I mean,
But there was, back in the day, 2 traffic lights that used to be in the
Two
intersection.
dummy cops there.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what they called them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Big
And,
concrete
It's gonna
dummy
make
cops that kept getting
negotiations
hit.
really tough.
so, to your point, they kept getting hit.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they weren't they weren't the solid concrete structure. I mean,
Yeah,
cars
they were
just careened right
solid
through
concrete. It was
But
about
it-
4
cars
feet,
just careened right through
4
it.
feet high with a blinking yellow light on.
Yep.
it. But yeah, they used to.
And
have
they
them.
got taken down because they were hit.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
Multiple times.
again, I think it's a good idea to just kick it over to them and see if they've got ideas that we're not thinking of. I do like I like the idea of signage or, flashing light or something, because if you hit that and it's $600 to replace it, that's better than hitting a person or,
Right.
our arch or whatever it is. We are also looking at putting a couple of bollards on the outside of the sidewalk there to stop, a car before it hits that. But, over, say, 15 or 20 miles an hour, it's not going to matter.
Yep.
Those bollards will go too. So,
And I was even thinking like those for the crosswalks in particular, like getting those blinking lights. So if you don't see the person, at least you sort of know somebody's crossing.
yeah, there are some,
there are improvements
pretty
that can be made,
effective, even now there's a lot of LED signage that goes on the side of the road that you push a button on the sign and it's solar
Yeah.
and it just gives you a little flicker.
Yeah.
Again,
grants
maybe
for
not
those.
this particular accident, but maybe a future accident. So,
Yeah, there's rumble strips and.
right.
Like
Yeah, this was at
berms
3:30 in the morning, so not a big pedestrian
Yeah.
concern there, but
Yeah.
Right.
you know, it could have been at 3:30 in the afternoon, and then we would be having a different conversation potentially. So
Agreed.
Well, after 1 a.m., just throw out stop sticks. That's,
there you go.
you know,
Nobody
There you
goes
go.
through.
won't do it.
That
There you go.
scarecrow though, that withstood the whole accident.
know,
That was
I know.
kind
I
of.
don't know that it actually got.
Somebody put it back up.
I don't think it got hit. It was to the left of, or to the right of where the
Still
car.
pretty impressive.
It
I
was-
hope that
it looked like
scarecrow
it
won.
there. Yeah, I hope it won too.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, we just totally derailed your.
No, no,
no,
no.
no.
Sorry.
No, I think that's good. We will reach out to Chief Crapo and just ask them to put that on the agenda and see what we
Okay.
can make of it. I wanted to mention the Grafton Energy Choice Program. So, as I think most people are aware, we have an aggregate energy program here in Grafton. Our rate is 10.8 cents per kilowatt.
That's good.
The National Grid winter rate just came out at 14 cents.
Yeah.
So that's a you know, I mean, it's not crazy money, but that's a good savings when you aggregate that over the whole community.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money that the total population of Grafton is saving. So I think that's a great program.
Is that annual or three-year contract?
That's a 3-year.
Okay.
Okay. I want to talk just briefly about earmark money. We had 2 earmarks in the budget, both for 25,000. One we're using for public safety. We're actually buying the Grafton Police Department Harleys. So we have 2 Harleys. They have been leased. We're buying out the remainder of the lease with those money so that we can keep the motorcycle program, I guess, literally on the road. And that really gets that's a great program. We use them quite a bit. In fact, one was on the road today. And then
Saw 'em
the
up for Halloween.
yep, they like them on Halloween. Yeah, yeah. So so that's really cool. Not every town has that program, and it's neat.
I wanted to.
You take it out.
Yep.
I know a guy if you're interested. The other 25,000 we're using for a customer service window in the building department. So after probably around the end of November, you'll see if you come to the municipal center, we're punching a hole in that wall and adding a fully accessible customer service window to that department. So yeah, those are those 2 things. And then lastly, I wanted to kind of dovetail 2 things. One, I wanted to call out the good work of Barb Conley in the senior center again. I think she's always doing great work down there. But we just concluded the tax work-off program. This year we had 14 participants who worked a total of 1,304.75 hours, which is pretty impressive. And that winds up a savings to those 14 of $17,553.41. I think the senior tax work-off program is a fantastic program, especially for those that are living on the margins. And I think that savings can really have a big impact in some people's lives. So I think that's really great. 14 sounds small when you have 20,000 people, but I can tell you of working with other town administrators, 14 is really good participation in that program. So I think that's great. I think that's all I got.
All right. Any questions for Evan? Okay. Moving on to correspondence. We received a number of correspondence over the past few weeks. One in particular that came to our attention was from Mr. Prisby with regards to Mr. Stevens, who's chair of CPC at the time, sent out some information, but I wanted to ask the board if there is any desire or anything that they would like to do in regards to that piece of correspondence, or any action that they would like to take.
I don't know if there's any action, but I do think it's worth, discussing. Is that the right thing to be doing? I don't know.
Discussion is an action.
Okay, then I would like the action of discussion. If
Okay, go ahead.
Well, when I read that, I was a little concerned because I know one of the 4 pillars for the CPC is affordable housing, and it felt very anti-affordable housing to me, so that was a concern of mine.
Does anyone else have any questions or want to add to that? Talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to have some discussion about it. It's, if nothing else, to try to be consistent, I guess, with how this board deals with what it becomes aware of as far as like public discourse in various forms, social media, email, phone calls, texts, whatever. It's really important for us to have a consistent way to deal with it. And I don't know, in this particular case, I think, you know, Mr. Stevens clearly identified himself not as a member of CPC, but just as a resident. And I think that's important. Beyond that, my opinion, he's got a right to have an opinion about something and to send an email to the people that he interacts with and knows as friends and neighbors, and it's challenging. It certainly could be something that we could consider in an appointment situation, and that's a bit of a challenge for me to, you know, well, if we're going to be considering that in an appointment situation, why would we not be considering it for a sitting board or commission member? You know, at the same time, you know, we're into like serious First Amendment territory here where people have a right to their opinion. It's particularly if they've clearly identified themselves as not part of an official town entity. And that's the piece that I have a lot of trouble with when it comes to this. 'Cause I hate slippery slope type of lines of conversation, but I'm going to say that this is one of those because I really think it is.
I agree with you that I think he has the right to an opinion, as we all do. But I disagree with you in who he sent the email to. I believe he utilized resources he gained as chair of CPC to send it out. I don't think he limited it to just friends, and that's the problem I have.
I just know I personally have no evidence or information to know one way or another. So that's, but look, I guess here's another way to think about it. We have residents that are expressing all kinds of opinions on various things on Facebook targeted to half the town.
I know.
What are we gonna, I don't know. I don't have an answer for this. I really don't. And it's something that I was really concerned when I saw that and really disappointed. I think there's lots of things we could do. We could center someone on a board, like publicly say, we don't think this was the right thing to do. To me, that's a pretty severe action. We could bring them in for a discussion to help understand what their perspective is. We could potentially, you know, nominate somebody from this board to go have a discussion and suss it out a little bit. I don't know. Increasingly, though, people's communication in the public is visible and can be kind of weaponized in various ways. I don't know. I'm really struggling with how to. What would be the appropriate action for this board to take? I don't know. I'd like to be consistent about it, though, as we think about these things. It happened with Mr. Kusher, with some of the things that he brought up, and then there was an appointment process, and that factored into it. And so I just think in service of trying to create some norms, maybe, with how people who are contemplating communicating in a public way, that we can set some expectations for them in terms of how the select board will deal with that kind of stuff. That's the best that I can sort of come up with in terms of how I would personally want to respond to this, to just set that expectation going forward, to say if we see this sort of stuff, this is generally how we're going to react to it. If there's a process that's involved that we can kind of come up with, I don't know. Talking.
I think that, you know, anybody on any board or committee and on this board, for example, not us, but previous boards, people have stepped down from the stage at town meeting and said, you know, I'm speaking as a citizen. Any board or committee that you're on, when you're in a public setting, you're really never speaking as a citizen. You're always associated with that board. Always. I believe that everybody has a right to say whatever they want, as long as it's factual. If they're against something or they're whatever it is, they have the right to tell people that they're against that. I think that's what John has done in this situation. Would I have done this? No. But here's the issue that I have. The trust builds the promised senior affordable housing instead of high-rise luxury condos. Now, luxury condos has never come into this equation. Ever. No one has ever talked about building luxury condos at 25 Worcester Street. That's where I have the issue. I believe John has the right to do and say whatever he wants, and if he wants to convince people that this is the way you should vote or whatever, it happens constantly. But when you use information that's not correct, that's where I have a problem. I have a real problem with that. And you know what? He knows better. So, you know, shame on him for saying luxury condos and trying to hype this thing more than it actually is. But I totally believe he has the right to express his opinion. And if
Right.
he does it on paper and sends it out, that's the way it is.
Let me just remind everyone that, you know, you're talking about the character of somebody. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
if we're gonna go down that road, in my opinion, you should invite the person in here to have the discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
at the board level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want everyone to kind of be aware of that, please, and try to keep the conversation to, like, okay, what do we want to do with this?
I think you
guess.
just made a great suggestion. I think based off that, we should invite him in and just see how he feels.
See what everyone else feels. How does everyone else feels? Or do you get an option? Does one of us go have a conversation with them? What's the weather here?
I'd prefer that. I'd prefer, you know,
I think this is better taken offline.
yeah, you know, maybe Peter as chair, you have a conversation with him and get more information.
Second.
Sorry, but not sorry. Yeah, and then I think, you know, the discussion becomes not about the person, but about the process. And, you know, these are our committees. Do we hold different expectations for people who are chair of these committees? When I read this, my opinion was I saw a conflict. That's how I read it at first. I don't think it's acceptable. And I'm not talking about the person. It's just not something that I would do or I would expect chairs of other boards and committees that we have appointed to do. But Matt, I mean, you bring up great points. I mean, First Amendment, social media, we can't, there's got to be boundaries around what the expectations are for calling out things like this. And, you know, in terms of this particular issue, I don't want to make a big deal of it. I'm certainly not asking for resignation. But I think we need to take this seriously, and there should be a discussion, and we need to determine moving forward how we're going to handle situations like this. I am not comfortable with how this went out, and I don't think it was a responsible thing to do.
There's another layer to this for me too, is that Mr. Stevens represents the historic district on CPC. So he represents another committee, and I'd be curious if that committee is aware that this happened, and if they're okay with that type of representation, and if we're adding to Peter's list of people to reach out to offline, if we could add that as well.
Can I make a suggestion? I would not
Please.
do that
Okay.
offline.
Oh, that's online?
Well, here's the problem. You're asking the chair to have a conversation with somebody, and you haven't determined the bounds of the conversation.
Right.
So what is Peter talking to him about? Or whoever about? So my concern is, you're asking the chair to represent all of you without the board voting to say what are you saying? What's the context? What's the action? So I think if you're going to have a conversation, then you need to invite the person into a meeting to hear from the board. Otherwise, the board needs to take some kind of formal action to formalize what you're asking one member to do on its behalf.
You kind of took the words out of my mouth, Evan, because that was going to be my next question.
We were
is,
getting there.
what are the parameters?
Yeah.
But I'm glad you hit it first. It's a good question.
Yeah.
So, easiest thing to do, in my opinion, is to bring the person in here just to have a discussion with us. That'd be the easiest thing. That way, any one of us can say what we would like to. The person's got a right to be here and all that sort of thing. You know, leaving it up to me or one of us really puts, you know, what if it doesn't align with one of you? Like what I might say.
Oh, and it gives him the same platform that we're having right now, and I think that that would be fair.
What would be fair?
To allow him the same opportunity to
I
speak
agree.
publicly rather than
Yeah.
to have to retell his story 1,500 times to whoever might ask him. It's just go watch the meeting.
How does everyone feel about that?
I don't know if I love that.
He could
Look,
he
I-
could
I-
decline it. He doesn't have to.
I
accept
know,
it.
it feels like we need to wade carefully into these waters.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm gonna just listen for longer, cause I'm not sure I feel comfortable pulling somebody in for a comment they emailed out to. Yeah, they emailed out.
Yeah.
I think we should just leave it alone.
I agree with that, but I do think that we should put together some parameters at a future meeting of what our expectations are and
Well, I'm not sure that we can do that, Doreen, because in my opinion, he was expressing his opinion to other people that he was trying to convince. And again, the only issue I have is that he put in luxury condos, and that was never the case. So
To be fair, there's a couple of items that were on there that he forwarded, basically that were not accurate. Besides the luxury condos thing, that I was following along, and the Habitat Humanity option. You know, that's these things are very misleading. I have a problem with it too.
it
Yep.
was meant to be. It
Well,
was meant to be
let's- you know,
misleading.
it was meant to
Absolutely.
throw, you know, the fear of everyone and so on and so forth. But I see people's points here about, you know, individually speaking to the member or bringing them in here. I mean, it's not the first time that this board has done that. It's not the first time that affordable housing was the center of this board's attention,
Yeah, right.
as it was back in 2016 or so.
As it will be over the next year.
Right.
But this is about the conduct of people who are somewhat attached to this, and I feel that, you know, bringing the person in here is consistent with what was done before. It might be uncomfortable for some of you, but to me, that's the fairest way of doing it.
I think it's too late to say leave it alone as well, because we've just had a discussion, and I think allowing, like I said, him the opportunity to come in to either, you know, defend his actions or apologize, or whatever he wants to do, I think is the fair thing to do, because we've all weighed in on it, and I would like him the opportunity to weigh in as well.
Unless, what does people want to do?
Me, I'm leaving it alone.
You're leaving it alone. Okay.
I'm leaving it alone.
You want to leave it alone.
I do.
Late for that though. I mean, shame on him what said.
But we had a discussion, and that's what we came up with. So
So if we were having a discussion about you right now, Ray, and you weren't here, you wouldn't want the opportunity to come in and respond to what was said? I know I would, and I like to
I'd
treat
budge
people.
through that door and jump right over the desk at
Well,
you.
right. So I feel like that's because if you guys were talking about me like this and I watched the meeting, I mean, first of all, I'd be here anyway, but anyway, the point is I would want that opportunity to come in and address you guys, and I just would feel really awful to not afford that to him.
Then I think, based on that, Colleen, I think that the board should offer an invite to Mr. Stevens, and if he wants to come in, then he can come in, and if he doesn't want to come in, then we leave it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
Okay, that sounds good. Why don't I do that for the 16th? 17th, yeah, 16th.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
are you taking public comment on this?
This is
Well, this could.
our discussion. What does the board wish to do?
Control.
I mean, we did talk about if it's on the agenda, we would be open to public comment.
Mr. Stevens.
Okay.
Does the board want to permit Mr. Wood and Mr. Frisbee into the meeting?
As a member of CPC and the author of the letter, I suppose that makes sense.
Evan, what were you going to say?
So my concern is that Mr. Stevens isn't here. We're gonna continue to talk about
Yes.
him.
Correct.
I would extend the invite to him, and then if folks would like to come in for public comment during that discussion, I feel like that would be more appropriate than to talk about someone who is a board appointee that isn't here to answer any of the discussion.
What does the board wish to do?
I agree with Evan.
I'm happy with that.
Okay. All right. This time we won't be taking any public participation for this discussion and correspondence, but we will reconvene and continue this conversation on the 16th with an invitation to Mr. Stevens. And if anyone from the public would wish to come in and weigh in their comments, they may do so as well. Is that fair?
As long as the meeting doesn't end up like Matt's meeting.
Well, I got Colleen here, and
No, I know.
she's going to keep
I know.
me in line to
I
keep
know.
everyone else in line.
Yep. And we have Nerf guns.
No, we don't. He's not. No, we don't.
That was a good idea.
Okay, why don't we move on then? So we have some other additional correspondence here from Marge Featherstone, was regarding Carroll Ave. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
No,
It's nice that she was thanking everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Particularly Kevin Gallagher.
That was
I-
a great note.
As I was reading through it, I was waiting for the punchline. I was waiting to be like, what's going on that's wrong? And then she was complimenting the DPW department and particularly Kevin. So thanks for the letter and thank you, Kevin, and the DPW department.
Agreed.
Very nice.
All right, next up we have inquiry from Telegram Gazette, but I think that's passed. Recommended hours, trick or treat hours. Town really doesn't do that, but
And we responded to that.
we did, yeah.
Yep.
Ms. Bogar, talking about some of intent on purchasing land along 122 Worcester Street area. Any questions or comments on that? Any questions or comments on the proclamations for School Choice Week that was sent to me from Andrew Campanella, President of National School Choice Week?
Do we read the proclamation or?
I think we'll put it on something more official, if that's why I want to ask the board if they want to go ahead and go forward with that proclamation at a future meeting.
So personally, I'm not in support of this.
Okay.
And I won't talk about it too much, but, this is sometimes these things, I don't know this organization, and that's my main concern. Sometimes these type of proclamations can be used to advocate for particular political positions that this board may or may not agree with. I think as a general principle, I agree with school choice, but not knowing who this organization is or what their kind of agenda is, as another general principle, we should be advocating for Grafton Public Schools and BVT as our local options. But I would not necessarily want to be on board with reading a proclamation that then could be turned around and used to advocate for some voucher or charter school agenda at a state level. So that's just me, but and it's mostly because I just don't know this organization.
Anyone else? Okay. Moving on to Sierra Club Mass Chapter here. Any questions or comments? Anything else here? Small business development at CMRK. We had some correspondence regarding fire department. Any questions or comments on that?
I think that letter should just go into the packet or whatever for in putting our plan together. I think it was a well-written letter and it has a lot of value.
Me too.
All right, we'll pull that correspondence out from Neil, and we'll include that in with the meeting for next week. That's what you're referring to, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. So we will, now we're on the discussion. We were going to pass over review of annual music license application. I know I was talking with Evan. He and the staff will have some exhibits for us to review on or about the 16th of November.
Yep.
And we'll continue that discussion and look at getting final feedback from us, and so they can move forward with the annual license application process. So next up here, fire department meeting update. So we know we have our meeting with the department next Tuesday during our workshop. Just a reminder that meeting starts at 6 p.m., not 7 p.m.
Got it.
So please do your best to make it here for that. But in addition to that, I did send out, and I copied everyone here in the packet, the links to the two meetings that we were discussing, what we wanted to talk about with the department, in addition to just a summary of information that was sent to the chief that was then forwarded on to his officers and staff. But I wanted to open this up for anybody if they have any questions or comments before we get to next Tuesday. And if there's anything that I need to do in addition to preparing a department head for a meeting with us, let me know. So I'll open that up to anybody.
Yeah, I would just like to, as an agenda item for November 16th, that email that you're talking about concerning questions. I'd like that on the agenda for the 16th. I'm not gonna,
Okay.
I don't want to talk about it now because I think the process that we have going right now, even though we don't have a plan, we have a process. I think it's going good, and I just want to keep that going. So I'd like that on the agenda for the 16th.
All right. You'll provide a summary to what the purpose of you want
Yep.
to discuss? Okay, good. All right. Anybody else?
So we did lose an option that we previously had. I was speaking with the chief, and he is no longer going to file an extension with the state. So if that was an option that was going to be considered previously, it is no longer an option for the board to consider now. So, thank him for offering that, and then, understand that that's no longer an option. So we're now limited to an outside interim, an inside interim, or some non-intern type of situation. And does the board want to have a discussion about where we feel, or should we just wait for the fire department to kind of tell us what they would like and we just endorse it at that point, or?
I think it's a good question.
I mean, I'd like to hear from the officers. I know they've been meeting and discussing this, so I'd really like to hear from them. I think they may have some great ideas and some great, part of the process that we need to follow through with. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be a good meeting.
I do too.
Yeah, and I wouldn't set the expectation that we're gonna endorse necessarily
Right.
what their recommendations are, but those will have to have some serious considerations. So this, board will make the decisions that it needs to make based on all the input that we've gotten from them and everybody else and our own individual considerations of things. But for me, I'd like to have the next step be that we bring the officers in and really understand where they're coming from.
Okay. Is there anything else in addition that you may want to present to them or ask them to consider before next Tuesday?
Search committee membership makeup?
Okay.
Personally, I would like to see the membership change from the previous search committee. I know it was a 7-member committee. Personally, I'd like to see that reduced down to 5, and I have my own opinions on what that 5 would look like, but obviously the whole board would have to agree to that, and then, it would be nice to be in agreement before we met with the fire department so that they understood where we were coming from, but, it's up to you guys.
So we can add that
So is that something that the rest of the board wants to discuss now?
I'd really like to get the input from the offices.
Okay.
I'd really like to hear, you know, like I said, they've been working, so I'd really like to hear what they have to say.
I guess the question is, are they gonna have a chance to meet between now and Tuesday to give us that input?
Oh, yeah, I don't know what I
Well-
mean.
You know, I think all of them have, or most of them have email. If we at least forward to the chief, he could distribute to his officers, you know, as he see fit. And then, you know, we could at least put that out there saying, you know, something to think about.
Yeah.
Maybe they've already thought about it. You know, we don't know.
Yeah.
I
So,
think they have already
Yeah,
thought
maybe
about
they
it.
have.
I'm
do
pretty
too.
sure they have
I
too.
do
But
too.
I think it's,
I just wanna make sure that to the extent possible, they've been given the questions, had an opportunity to meet as a group, and have some perspective come into our meeting, so that it's not, it's organized and, kind of, I don't know, it's gonna go well, I guess. So maybe this isn't something that needs a ton of discussion, just putting it out there.
If I may, I think they're pretty well prepared.
Okay.
I think if you've got one additional question you want to fire out, and if they can answer it, great, and if they can't, they can just tell us. Didn't have an opportunity to get together and get that one answered for you, but I think
Okay.
we can send it out.
We
I met
will.
with them I
Last
don't know.
week?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. It's all a blur at this point. Yes, it was last week, and I feel like they really have a good handle on what they're going to come and talk to you folks about.
Good.
Great.
So yeah, I guess in short, maybe just email that out. If they can get to it, great, and if not, I'll have a conversation with their spokesperson and just say, if you don't have an answer, you can just say we don't have an answer on that.
Fantastic.
Okay.
okay. I got that added. I'll send that off to the chief after we are done. Anyone have any objections to that? Okay, anything else that the board wants to go over for next Tuesday? All right,
We're meeting in here,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. All right, moving on to November 9th goals workshop. So after we conclude with fire department, we have a couple things in that agenda for next Tuesday. We wanted to go over, for tonight, we want to talk about the goals workshop and just how we're going to structure that conversation for next Tuesday. Doreen, did you want to have the floor on this and just kind of give an overview of what your thoughts were?
Yeah, actually, Evan and I talked about it last week, and we haven't gotten together to put together the structure yet. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on it at this meeting, or if you just want to, we'll just provide that before Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
my thought.
Okay.
Last week I decided that was future Evan's problem, which
Yeah.
is quickly becoming President Evan's
President
problem.
Evans, you'll be getting a
but-
call from me tomorrow.
Yes,
to
I
talk
figured
about-
after this meeting you and I could connect
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I can turn my focus to that.
Yeah.
If that's
So, but I guess
reasonable.
if there's any suggestions of, takeaways from last year that people liked, or things that people wanted to see this time around, now would be the time to give that input.
I like a two-part meeting where we do the first one, report to department heads and get feedback back.
Good.
For sure.
I agree.
Okay.
I think it's that Nerf guns.
That's right.
My son's going to be jealous. Okay, anything else for the goals? All right,
I think that's it.
okay. Thank you very much, Doreen and Evan. Look forward to that next week. All right, so last but not least, we have 4 sets of meeting minutes. I can entertain a motion for that.
Does anyone want to talk about any of these, or are we good for the motion?
I'm all set, man.
All set.
All right. I move the board vote to accept the meeting minutes of October 13th, October 14th, October 18th, and October 19th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
Motion made, seconded for the approval of the 13th, 14th, 18th, and 19th for October meeting minutes. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion carried unanimous. Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion carried. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.